why I included the simulation of an anxiety attack is because a lot of people don't know what it feels like, and this is just a very slowed down version, a very concise version of what a panic attack or an anxiety attack feels like. And if someone was to have this sort of reaction in public, then a lot of people would realize and be able to see that there is something going on with that person and they might need some help. Mental health struggles are very common. And as a student in college, I know a lot of people who struggle with their mental health. And even though we can't physically see mental health problems and struggles, we can't see, if you're to see someone on the sidewalk, you wouldn't automatically say, oh, that person is an anxious person, that person has depression, that person has OCD. If they're just walking by, you don't think that. But there are visual cues and visual representations of identity that can lead someone to think that that person might be anxious, that person might be depressed, that person might have OCD. And these things, they have affected me in my life, they have affected my friends, and there are many different visual cues and visual representations that people use in order for us to see and acknowledge that that person is struggling.
When people are struggling with mental health issues, they display their struggles physically.
Some people talk about how they perform depression, sadness, mental illness, what you see in their bodies.
So you can see it in terms of the comportment of their body, the sloping if they're depressed, the high intensity if they're anxious.
And also their hygiene. Maybe they don't brush their hair or take showers. Maybe they don't pay attention to their appearance.
Because they don't care at the moment. The most depressed person I remember ever seeing as a client came in and shook my hand as if she was going to break it. And she presented completely composed, completely confident, completely optimistic.
Right, so they might do an extreme version of happiness and well-being in order to compensate and pretend that they're doing fine.
Yeah, as a way of trying to cope and prove to everyone else so that they're communicating that they're okay so they don't have to deal with other people's expectations when they're not.
Sometimes other people's worry is another burden that they carry with them.
And that's the thing that happens with internal experience. It's always being communicated in some way. Sometimes it's the inverse, like my client, but sometimes it's people's inability to keep from being able to display what it is that's disturbing them.
So maybe they pretend to be okay so that other people don't try to cheer them up, because that can lead to people being more depressed if people minimize their troubles.
Minimize it or think that there's a quick fix. If only you would change your attitude.
And it's their job to fix them so they don't have to deal with it.
Calm down,
right.
And then you won't be anxious.
Don't worry, it'll be fine.
Cheery, have hope. Yeah.
Look on the bright side.
Right, so everything that we do is communication, and it displays what's going on internally in an external manner.
Example, this past summer I was in Boston and I struggled a lot with my anxiety and depression. And what would happen when I was anxious and depressed is I would cry a lot. And when I first started this company, I didn't really know a lot of people because I was completely overwhelmed with my emotions. And when I would cry, my face would get really red and my eyes would get puffy. And people at my company would notice that I was visually distraught. They would see that there's a problem. I would kind of hunch over and look upset. People could tell that there was something wrong. And as people who didn't know me very well, they didn't know how to approach the problem. So they definitely noticed it because I could see it in myself. Even though these things are affecting our brains, we can display our thoughts and our feelings visually and on a personal or impersonal level.